And joining us now with more on the Judicial Selection Committee is Eliav Breuer, the Knesset reporter for the Jerusalem Post. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So this is a very sensitive and controversial issue, and also a very complicated one. So can you break it down for us? What is going on with the appointments to the committee?
Right. So first of all, the committee is responsible for appointing all of Israel's judges, whether it's Supreme Court judges or regional court judges or magistrate court or even transportation, all of Israel's judges. So this committee has a lot of power. Now, there are two members of the Knesset who serve on this committee, and on Wednesday there'll be a vote for these two members of the committee. Traditionally, the Knesset, whoever's the coalition in the Knesset would choose one of its own as to occupy one spot on the committee and allow the opposition to occupy the other spot on the committee. But this time around, there are a lot of voices calling on Justice Minister Yariv Levin and Prime Minister Netanyahu to direct all of the coalition members to appoint, to have both spots occupied by coalition Knesset members. The reason this is a problem is because the Judicial Appointments Committee is one of the most controversial issues in the whole judicial reforms, where the coalition is trying to gain power and the opposition is trying to block the coalition from gaining power in the committee. The opposition sees the coalition's attempt to occupy both spots as a step that's a lack of faith in negotiations and an attempt to take over the committee.
And so who are the leading candidates at the moment as far as the coalition is concerned?
Right. So first of all, the opposition all came together for one candidate. That's opposition Yesh Atid MK Karine El-Harar. The coalition, so far there are 8 different coalition candidates from 3 different parties. Now the vote's anonymous, so unless only one candidate puts their vote, unless all the other candidates take away their candidacy, there's no real way to ensure that the opposition will get a spot on the committee.
And so, is it still unclear that the coalition will agree to appoint a member of Knesset from the opposition? I mean, what's going on inside the coalition? As you said, there are many forces pushing in different directions. What more can you tell us?
Right. So what's going on inside the coalition, there's basically 2 camps. And this is not new, right? There's the more moderate camp who's saying, look, we've already, this is a tradition. There's no reason to break the tradition. We should give the opposition the spot on the committee. It doesn't matter. There's no reason to blow up the talks now. And the reform and all the protests have, caused us enough trouble already. And then there's the hawkish camp, right, led by Justice Minister Levin and by the parties further to the right in the coalition, who are saying no. There's no reason for us to make any concessions to the opposition. They haven't promised us anything, so let's use this as a bargaining chip and appoint both and occupy both spots by the coalition.
Mm-hmm. And so if the Knesset does decide not to appoint an opposition member, would this indeed mean, the end of negotiations for the legal reforms?
Yes, and the opposition has made that clear without doubt. So that's why this is so important, because if on Wednesday evening, we'll know probably by Wednesday afternoon at about 2:30, if it becomes apparent that 2 coalition Knesset members were chosen to the committee, then that means the talks at the president's residence are over, and we could start seeing a lot more chaos.
A lot more chaos. And now, yet Avigdor Lieberman coming out yesterday and saying that the 2 sides have pretty much already reached an agreement. I mean, is this true? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it depends what you mean by agreement. Both sides have, according to all the reports and what everybody's been saying, although this hasn't been officially confirmed, is that both sides have agreed in principle on two relatively minor issues in regarding the reform. And so there's almost an unspoken agreement where if the coalition allows the opposition a member on the Judicial Selection Committee, the opposition will agree to support these two laws, which they don't have a problem with in principle. But none of the agreements have been signed, none have been made official. And so while it seems that there's agreement in principle, that does not mean that if an opposition member is indeed chosen to the committee, we'll see, kumbaya right after.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot more is sure to happen in the next day, and we'll, of course, keep following. Eliav Breuer, thank you so much for your analysis today.
Thanks for having me.